Hi everyone, this is Christy with Paper Hoarder Disorder. This is video number 4 in the decorating series for the Mother Goose 8x8 album boxed mini album with platform. And we are going to continue on with our cuts. So let's go ahead and let's start with the heavyweight tags that slide into the large tags that slide into the pockets. Oh, there goes my camera. It does not like black. Too much black just really freaks it out. Anywho, what I'm using here is I'm using a 90-pound weight. Actually, it's a little bit greater than 90 pound. It's a real high quality, thick cardstock. If you have a kit, then this is already included in it. This premium grade for your tags. But if you need to find it, you can either get it from me, or you can, a halfway decent substitute is the extra heavy weight at Hobby Lobby. It's very thick. It's not exactly a black. It's kind of a soft black. It's got kind of a, well, it's just like black clothes. Not all blacks match. This is a true black, and so I love it a lot. So if you need to purchase some of this from me, you can. Otherwise, go ahead and try to use that extra heavyweight cardstock at Hobby Lobby, and I believe it's about $9 a pack. So, anywho, I need 6 of these, and what we're going to do is we are going to cut these down to a 7 1/4 inch square. So we have, and then you can go ahead and keep these together as your scraps. And one thing I did want to show you on here, oops, my little stickets are going all over the place. So again, let me show you. So we're again a 7 1/4 inch square, and we need 6 of these in a nice thick cardstock. Now, if you don't have, if you just have on hand what you have on hand, and maybe you don't have a Hobby Lobby around the corner, or you're out of the country, and if you don't live in the United States, and you don't want to pay international shipping, to get them from me, what you could always do is you can take 2 pieces of lighter weight cardstock and glue them together. But you would have to really make sure they're glued together well. But having a really strong tag is a really nice thing. So let's see, I've only got 2 more, so I'm going to go ahead and just finish those up, and they will be ready for our kit. Nice clean cuts. So I will also give you a little tip here after this one on how I kind of manage my scraps, because I have lots of them. Definitely more than your average crafter. So what I do is I tend to, and you guys might already do this, but when I'm cutting these down, typically what I do is I try to cut off these to an inch before they're completely cut down. That way I have 1-inch strips for my binding strips. But these you can also cut down. So what I do is I sort through them, and then I will take them. Now this isn't quite enough to bundle, but what I do is I will take, let's see here, I have extra pieces here. So I will usually find a little scrap. Let me get one. I will usually find a little scrap, and I will bundle these all together, and I will just wrap this around, snip it, and then I will glue it together. And I will bundle these together in the same size. On these, sometimes I'll even do it up to pieces like here that are 3 inches, and I'll bundle these together, and it really does help having all your sizes grouped together, because then, for example, if you wanted to use this as a border, all you would have to do, if you do it down to, this is a little more than an inch, but if you do 1 inch, then you can use them as binding strips. Actually, this is pretty close, so you could even use this as a binding strip. You just score it in half. It doesn't matter that it's a little longer than an inch. But you could also use this as a punched edge. So you can take this, and because all of these are going to punch the same depth, it's going to be uniform. So it really helps to have all of your pieces kind of bundled together, and it makes them a lot easier to store as well. So to store and to actually use again, rather than just discarding all these wonderful pieces. So that picks up our 6 premium tags. Next, we need to cut the pattern paper that is going to go on those tags. And here I have my 6 coordinating graphic 45 sheets right here. I just love these colors. So what we're going to do on here is we are going to take and we are going to cut this down. You can see I have my side here. You'll notice on these that they are pretty much non-directional. They're pretty non-directional, so it doesn't matter. These are going to look good either way you turn them. So I would recommend that you get that in order to do this cut and make it work for you. So on here, what I'll do is I need these cut to 7 inches. Our tags were 7 1/4 square, and we want our pattern paper that goes on there to be 7 inches square. So I'll put this on the 7 inch, and then I will take my large piece and I will do this at 7 inches as well. And there we have a 7 by 7, and we also have a 5 by 7. So on our tags, what we will do is we will have, this will go on here like this with a nice skinny little border. And then on the reverse side, this is going to go up here like this. So you have 2 choices. Now you can put it on there like this, and you can do your journaling down here, or you can add some of the sticker elements or whatever you like. I wouldn't get 2-dimensional on this because as it slides in and out of the pocket, you don't really want anything for it to get caught up on. But you could punch the edges on this if you like, and you could also turn it to the side if you want if you want that tag this way and you want it this way. Since this is non-directional, all you'd have to do is actually turn it this way. But you could go ahead and you can have a portrait style, and you can do your journaling over here. So that's how you get both sides of that. And so you're going to go ahead, and I'll do a couple more just to demonstrate it again. So we're going to take this to 7. And then we're going to take it to 7 again. And there's our 2 pieces. And one more time, we're going to go to 7. And 7. And we've got a few more. Let's just go ahead and finish them up. You can always fast forward through this part. I love this blue. It's very, very pretty. So of course, you may be, if you didn't use the 12 by 12 sheets for this, you could use, you would be needing a second pack of the 8 by 8 in order to get all these cuts out of there. And I do recommend, if you want to do both sides like I'm doing, I would recommend that you do use the 12 by 12. Otherwise, you will need 2 8 by 8 sheets for each tag. So that would be 12. That would be 12 8 by 8 pages just for your tags. So that would eat up another half of a pack. So It's up to you. I guess it would probably be about the same though, because those 6 sheets of 12 by 12 are going to cost you $6, and half a pack of 8 by 8 is going to cost you, I think, $12. I know they went up on their prices, but $11 or $12 on your 8 by 8 pad, so maybe it's about a wash. So anywho, so we have those. Next, what we're going to do is we have 2 waterfalls that we need to make, and there are 4 sections to each of the waterfalls here. And let me go ahead and get a measurement on these for you, just to be sure. So I need 8 pieces to make 2 waterfalls, and these are, let's see here, they are 3 1/4 inches wide by 4 3/4 inch long. So let's go ahead and take some paper, and I typically do use 8 1/2 by 11 because 2 sheets of 8 1/2 by 11 is still typically cheaper than 1 sheet of 12 by 12. So, and of course there's more paper too if you were to take 2 8 1/2 by 11s and put them side by side, is still quite a bit more paper than a 12 by 12. So I only use 12 by 12. Sorry about the glare. I only use the 12 by 12 if I absolutely have to have that long span. So on this one, we want 4 3/4 inch by, so let's go ahead and do our 4 3/4 inch, and we're going to do it this way, and we're going to do 3 1/4. So we're going to go ahead and double that to 6 1/2, and we're going to cut that 6 1/2 by 4 3/4 in half again at 3 1/4. And there we have 2 pieces. So again, we're going to take this leftover piece, we're going to go to 4 3/4, turn it to the side, 6 1/2, and 3 1/4. Okay, so there we have our 4 pieces, and that will do 1 waterfall. So let's go ahead and do that just one more time. Let's get rid of this. Our scraps are becoming unruly. Okay, put this over here. So again, we're going to turn it to the side, and we are going to do 4 3/4 and 4 3/4, and we're going to turn that to the side at 6 1/2 and at 3 1/4 in half again, 6 1/2 and 3 1/4. All right, so there we have enough to make 2 of our waterfall pages. And let's see, next up, we're going to come back and score these in just a little bit, where they need to be scored. Let's go ahead and continue to finish our cuts. Okay, so on these, we're going to be making 2 pockets. And these pockets are 7 inches by 4 3/4. So what I'm going to do on this one, so in order to save some paper and to make some binding strips, we're really getting washed out here. Let me see if I can help that a little bit. We're really getting washed out. Okay. That's not it. Okay. The brightness, maybe I can decrease the brightness. Maybe that's a little bit better. Sorry, you're getting that glare. That's not going to help. Okay, maybe that'll help a little. Let's angle these lights, so maybe that's a little bit better. Okay, so that's a little darker, but maybe that'll be better. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to do it on the 11 inch. What we're going to do is we only need it to be 7 inches. So I'm going to take it down to 7 1/2. And I'm going to cut it. And this is kind of what I was telling you before. Sometimes I cut them off, even though I need this to be 7, not 7.5, I'm going to cut it off at 7.5 so that I can get that 1-inch strip. So now my leftovers are useful as a binding strip. So then I'm going to, once I've got my inch cut off, because it's much harder to cut a piece that is 1.5 inches into 1 inch. It's much harder to get that straight. It's really easy to cut that small 1 inch off of a large piece, if that makes sense. So I'm going to bring it down to the 7, which is what I actually need, and that way all I'm getting rid of is this little piece. And this one is useful to me now, at just the right size. So on here, I need 2 pieces that are 4 3/4. And you can do this one of 2 ways. You can either go up here to 9.5, or you can take 2 cuts at 4 3/4, or you can do one at 9.5, and then again at 4 3/4. Excuse me, frog in my throat. Okay, and so there's our 2 pockets. And you can see on here that these fit just fine. Okay, so these, we will come back and we will score these again at the end with the others. So we need 2 of those, so just 1 sheet for that. And we also need to make our library pockets. So let's go ahead and get some measurements on those. So these are 7.5 by 5.5. Okay, so we're going to be able to get 2 cuts out of 1 sheet. Whoop. So 7.5, again, what we're going to do is this one is just right on the money, so we're going to end up with a 1-inch strip anyways. And you'll find that we're actually going to need these 2, so keep these handy. And by 5.5. Okay, and so we have these 2, and then we're going to come back and score these. Whoops. My little Post-its are getting all over the place. And like I said, let's go ahead and take these 2 strips here. What we're going to need is, I believe we're going to need 2 that are 5.5. So let's just go ahead and take one of these strips, and I'm going to cut it down to 5.5. So now we've got 2 pieces that are 1 inch by 5.5. And we're going to put those with the last pockets. And let's see, what do we have next? The next thing I want to talk to y'all about is I have my cameo cuts. Now these cameo files will be available if you have a cameo. If not, you can purchase them. We won't be needing this. Let me get rid of this. It's got quite a glare to it. So on here, let's see if we can get a little bit more light on here again. So I need 3 of these. And I need 3 of these. Okay, so there are some options here. If you have a cameo, you can go ahead, and these are going to be cameo files that you can use on your own machine, or like I said, you can have me make them for you. You know, they're going to be up in my store. Or there are a couple other options. Now these are, let me give you an approximate. These are, with their little borders, are 6 1/4 by not quite 5. So what we do is, I think it's about probably about 4 3/4. So we're looking at 6.5 by 4 3/4 on this one, on the horizontal, and on the vertical one we are at 4.5 by 6 3/4. So what you can do is you can cut your pieces to this size, and you don't even have to have a border on here. It can be just a straight cut, and if you wanted to do a straight cut, let me go ahead and, maybe I should cut one for you. You could do, let me cut one up. So let's see, if you wanted a 1/2 inch border, see here. We have a piece. Oops. Let's see here. Okay. So, let's see. Sorry about the wait. I'm using my other cutter. Let's see. Okay, let's see here. So let me see if I got these right. These are that's about right. Let me make sure. So I wanted to give you an idea. Okay, so if we were to take these, and these are at 5" by 6.5 for our horizontal, and then this one is 4.5 by 7 for our vertical. Don't mind this score right here. So basically what you could do is, let me use one of the cut parts. Depending on the border that you want, you can see on here that these fit right in here on the border. Now if we do it to where they don't have a border and you're not using the cameo cuts and you're going it alone, what you would do is you would see here that you have about a 1/4 inch. Let me scoot this up just a smidge. You can see that there's a 1/4 inch border. Now, depending on what border you want, you can go larger or smaller. And of course, this up here is to be scored. It'll be about a 1/2 inch above the top of this. And you can glue these down and then score it. That way you're sure. And you want to leave, 1/4 inch all the way around. Now, there's one other option. And say, for example, this was, is there a horizontal? Yes, okay, so. And on a horizontal here, you can see on here that this fits on there just like this and leaves that scallop on the edge. Now, if you were to do it on this one, you can see that, again, you would end up with a 1/4 inch on all edges, and then once you've glued this down, you can go ahead and make that score. And what that score is to do, what that score does, is it wraps around. Let me go and show you. We do our mountain sides up and fold up and over. What this does is it loops to, just as an example, it loops to the back of the paper, and that's where it glues down. So it hides itself, it hides its binding, and then it flips up this way. So we want to make sure that we leave enough room so that we can score about a 1/2 inch on there so that it has room to wrap around. Okay, the settings are just very off on this. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's back to that brightness again. Let's do the auto on there. Let's see if we can change that. It is very, very bright. I don't know why it's quite so bright. Sorry about that, guys. I am not sure why it is acting so strangely. Maybe I'll do this. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. And let's get that just a little bit off of there. And maybe that'll be better. It seems, let me make sure that you guys are seeing the colors. Okay, you can see them just fine. It's just at a distance. They're getting washed out. I think it's just all this black on the table. Okay, so there's one other option. Okay, so again, let me go ahead and write these down on here. So this one is, let's see, we have 6.5 wide by 5 inches tall, and that is our horizontal. And for our vertical, we are at 7 by, so we've got 4 1/2 by 7 inches tall. Okay, and you can see on here, this is where our score line is going to be, and this is where our score line is going to be. So just like that. Now, if you wanted to use a punched edge, and you wanted to have, say for example, you had a punch around the page, then you would go ahead and you would figure out about how deeply that punches in, and you would add that to this border to make sure that you were still, you still had the full 6x4 or 4x6 size in the center of it. So you'd want to add that to all of your sides and make sure you still have that extra ½ inch. Or, you could just round the edges, or if you just wanted to punch, like, say, the bottom edge, and say your punch took up about a ½ inch, which is typical, then and you wanted to put that on there and you just wanted straight borders on the sides, then what you would do is basically just extend this, and instead of it being 6½ by 5, it would be 6½ by 5½, and you could punch this edge down here. So that would be a punched edge on the bottom, and on this one you could do 4½ by 7½ and punch this edge down here. So I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, go ahead and feel free to contact me and I'll help you out with that and help you figure out whatever you need to make that work. So that kind of goes over our cameo cuts for our interactive flips. And I also wanted to show you on here, now if you, let's see, we also have our little tags here, our little scallop tags, which is just adorable, and I designed all these on the Cameo. And there's also, with the Cameo files, you'll get this. So if you have the Cameo, you can go ahead, and there's two files. There's the tag itself, and then there's the inner pattern paper tag, and it recesses in there just perfect, super cute stuff. Now, if you didn't want to do that, you could just put a square tag in here, and you could do a ½ circle up here, and I believe that would be about a 2½ inch circle. Let me see if I have my 2½ inch circle somewhere in here. I'm pretty sure it's in here somewhere. I have lots of punches. I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess on that and say that it's about a 2½ inch circle right here, because this is 3 inches wide. So if you were to take and you were to punch out of your pattern paper 2½ inch circle and you were to cut it in half, then you would have that ½ circle here, and then you could just take a piece of, just imagine that this is cut down to probably, again, that 2½ inch, and then it would be like a square down here. I know that probably doesn't help to see that, but you could use a rectangular piece here that would probably be, let's see, about a 2½ by, probably about a 2½ by 3½-ish. Go ahead and cut it out. If you want to do it that way, then go ahead and cut it out of some scrap paper and just lay it on there and see if it works for you. But you could find a way to do this dome, and to do, if you ordered this kit with these scallop tags and you don't have a Cameo in order to cut your pattern paper to match, what you can do is you could add that on there. And so go ahead and add on your rectangle and then your ½ circle up here. So I might also end up doing some scallop tags that are just square. Rectangular, and it'll make it a little easier to mat those. So that's probably what I'll end up doing. All of these books are always a work in progress. You just keep on adding to them. Okay, and then the other, I think that covers just about everything, except for the back of the tags. And we will go over that in just a minute. So what we need now is to do some of our scoring. So we'll get our scoreboard. And let's see if I can find my new fancy scoring tool. So I found I'm always on the lookout. I do a lot of scoring. And again, more than your average crafter. So I'm always on the lookout for a really good scoring tool. And I came across these and I bought them up, and they are in my store, or should should be in my store shortly. I do have them in stock though, so if you need them before I get them in the store, just contact me and we can go ahead and get you set up. So they have a rubbery grip on them, but here's what's really neat about them. Okay, so we have this. Do you remember those old pens when we were in in school, and they had all of these little, you could choose your color by pulling one of these down? Well, this one's not quite as fat as that, so it's a little easier and you don't write with it. So we have 4 different choices here. We have this red one that comes out, and you can see on here, whoops, I moved my light so you can't hardly see. You can see on here that it is a ball stylus. Sort of. You can kind of see it. There you go. You can actually see it better when I move my finger. And so it fits in here just really nicely. And what's nice is that it's a small stylus. And so if you don't like to push too hard, it's perfect. Now, if you push really hard, it's going to score right through, and it could end up tearing your paper. And so but it does make the nicest little scores on here. And it doesn't take hardly any pressure at all, and it's very comfortable. So you can see on here the scores that it makes. It makes a really nice score. And of course, these will just round together, and you can see that it scores very, very nicely and very easily. And so I am really, really thrilled with this tool. So let me show you the other things it does. Okay, so if we go to the next one, it's a really tiny stylus. It's the smallest one, and this is like the medium pink, and this would be used for doing the actual embossing through the embossing plates. And then on here we have this tip. Boy, it really needs a little bit more lighting here. Let me see if I can put it on here. It's probably not going to like that. But you can see on here, whoops, it really doesn't want to focus on that. You can see on here, it's kind of a chisel tip on there. So it's a nice, strong little, I wouldn't use it as a heavy-duty pick to pick out your dies, but it's a lot sturdier than a pokey tool. And which, speaking of pokey tool, if we go over here to the white one, this one actually is a piercing tool. So it's got kind of that needle point to it. So it's great as a piercing tool. And so usually what I've been doing since I got this is if I need to pierce a hole, then I use this one, the kind of needle tip. And then if I want to make that one larger, then I go to this kind of cone shape. And then, of course, I have my little stylus. And then I have my scoring tool. So all of that is in one, and I just love it, and it's very, very comfortable. So I just wanted to share that with you guys because as you can tell, I'm uber excited about it. So let's go ahead and get to our scoring. So the first things we need to score are the 8 pieces that we cut for our waterfalls. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn it on its 4 3/4 side. And I'm going to do the red one. The other one's a little too small, so we're going to score it at a 1/2 inch. Now, the reason why I score over on this side rather than this side, it's easier to score from this side, but this side's going to give you the most accurate, because if, for example, your cuts are not exact on this edge, it can actually make this deeper, if that makes sense. So if you're off just a little bit and you score 1/2 inch on this side, it might not leave the same distance. So sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. But I think that if you, it doesn't actually matter. Well, maybe it does. Well, not on this one. I just jumped the tracks there. So anyways, it's a good idea when you're trying to score that 1/2 inch to do it over on this side. It's harder to get used to. But especially with your bindings, it really matters to get it over on this side. So it's a good habit to get into. Okay, so we have our 8, except for my one that I jumped the tracks on. And so we have those ready. And next we need to do our pockets. Okay, so on these, what we're going to do is we're going to score at 3 1/4 and 6 1/2. So let's go ahead and take this. We've got 3 1/4 and 6 1/2 on our 7-inch width. Next, we're going to turn this to the side and we're going to score at 4 1/4. Now on this one, I don't mind that I'm scoring over on this side because I want to make sure that this is 4 1/4. I don't mind what this is going to be. It doesn't matter to me. You know, it doesn't matter to me if this is a little long or a little short. What matters to me is that this 4 1/4 is correct. So it depends, like I was saying before. Sometimes it matters and sometimes it doesn't. So again, so we're at 3 1/4, 6 1/2. And then we're going to turn it, and we're going to do it 4 1/4. Okay. So, the next one we want to do is our library pockets. And these are going to be scored at a 1/2 inch and 4 3/4. So let's go ahead and do that. 1/2 inch. I'm going to go ahead and hold it from this side so my hand's not in the way. And 4 3/4. And then I'm going to turn it counterclockwise. And I'm going to score, let me double check this one, 2 o'clock, 2 inches and 5 1/4. 2 inch, 5 1/4. So again, let's do that one more time. We're going to score at a 1/2 inch and 4 3/4. 2 inch, turn 90 degrees counterclockwise, and 5 1/4. 2 inch, 5 1/4. Okay, so we have those ready. And then the last thing I believe we need to score is our little binding strips that we cut to 1 inch by 5 1/2 inch. And we're just going to score those in half, just like so, 1/2 inch. If you, like I said on here, if you're doing your own, if you're doing your own sizes, this might change. You might want to go ahead and put your piece on there first, but if you're using mine, all you have to do is turn this little flat edge over here and you want to score it at 1/2 inch right there. And it will go the same on both of these. Now, if you purchase the kit, so again, 1/2 inch on both of these, will give you this. If you've purchased these from me, they're already scored for you. And they are ready. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a break here. That's all of our cuts. You know what? I take that back. Let's go ahead and make our cuts very quickly and go ahead and finish up this section so that this will wrap up, I believe, all of our prep work so that we can start jumping right into the decorating. Okay, so on these are already ready. So once these 8 pieces are scored, those are ready. So, and of course, these are ready as well. If you need to punch, go ahead and punch and get those ready. On these, what we're going to do is, this is what we're looking to get. These are going to be our 2 pockets. So this is what we have. You can see we have our 2 squares here and our 1 on the bottom. And you can see the tiny little square in the corner. So what we're going to do is we are going to angle right through. We're not going to cut into that square, but we're just going to cut diagonally right through that intersection. And then we're also going to angle. Now it doesn't have to be a perfect angle. We're going to angle right into that intersection. And then on this one, we're going to turn it to the side and we're going to cut away that entire score line and maybe even actually a little bit above it. Let me show you what I mean by that. You see how I did not go down the center of the score line. I cut away the entire score line and maybe even a little extra. So I didn't cut all the way through there. I'm going to finish you off. All right, and so there we have that, and I can go and angle this in just a tiny bit more. Okay, so that's what we need for those pockets. Now, when we go to make those pockets, what we're going to do is we're going to mountain sides up. Oop, there goes the camera. Lots of black on the table. Okay, let's see. Let's give it something to focus on. So we've got our mountain sides up. This is right in the center of the piece. We're going to fold up and over. Now, it does matter what side, not what side, but what order you do these in. Let's go ahead and use our bone folder. And so I'm just going to fold that over. Now, we have our large piece folded first. Now that is important. We don't want to do our sides first because these sides actually wrap to the back and end up getting sealed down so that we don't have anything for our tags to catch on as they slide in and out of our pocket. Since it's being glued down, we won't see the back at all anyways. So when we wrap these over the back, this back panel, what it does, it takes into consideration the thickness of this piece. And it makes it to where it doesn't bubble. So we're going to fold that over. Now you can see it's kind of trying to bubble a little bit. What we're going to do is we're just going to hold it down and we're going to just readjust that score line. And then we still have this little piece holding out, sticking out, and we're going to fold this whole pocket up and over that one. Again, we're going to hold it closed. And there we have that. And you can see on here, our little 1/2-inch tabs go all the way to the back. And those are going to get glued down, and now there's nothing on the inside of our pocket for our tags to get hung up on. So I refer to this one as a full back pocket. And I'm going to add glue to those two tabs, and I'm just going to go ahead and glue them down. And I always tell everybody, give lots of pressure, let the heat of your hand help that glue set and cure. Bond down, and there we have our pocket, and you can see we've got a good seal on that, and it does not like that black. Okay, so there's that, and we're going to do that for both of the pockets. And then our other one is our library pocket. So this is what we're looking for on our library pocket. This is upside down. So we have our longer piece up top here and our shorter one down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut away these 4 corners right here. And just as before, what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we cut away that entire score line on these sides. So I typically do the sides first. And again, when in doubt, when you're cutting these long pieces on the sides, you want to cut away a little more than a little less. We don't want to go down the center. When we do these on these short sides, you can go ahead and go pretty much down the middle on those, and you can always trim that off a little bit later if you want. And so I'm just going to kind of go down about the center of these little short sides. And that's what we have there. Okay, and again, we're going to put the mountain sides up so that we're folding away from our score. And I'm just going to, as always, I'm going to fold my larger piece over my small. I'm going to fold the 2 long sides in. And give a crease. Okay, now, if you would like to, you can use your chomper or your corner rounder or whatever edge you like. So I'm going to go ahead and use my chomper, and I'm going to do the 1/2 inch. And you have to have these tucked in when you do it, because otherwise this won't reach in all the way, or sometimes it gets in the way. So I fold these in, and then I chomp, and I chomp, and I usually do these 2 bottoms ones. Now, when we put on our, I also want to do this top corner. If my left is folding over my right, which is what I usually do, I chomp the one that will be showing. So right like that. So you've got this little curve up here. Now, when we put on our pieces, let me show you. When we put these on, oh, these are not the right ones. Here we go. So when we put on our piece, you can see on here that it covers all that up. So it doesn't actually matter. But what I do want to show you is that in case you're not using this, in case you're not using a cut apart and covering up the entire thing. Boy, the light is just really getting me, huh? Let's see. Yikes. All right. Maybe that's better. I don't know what it is with my lighting. I can't seem to get it right anymore. You'll have to bear with me. I will figure it out one of these days. I thought I had it all figured out. Anywho, so you won't be able to see it, but I think it's important that you know how to make the pocket itself, and not necessarily just for this project. So we've chomped these 4 edges plus this top one right here. Now again, that won't show. On the bottom one, we want to fold that up and over. Now that's going to go to the front there, and you can see it gives a cute little look on here. So if you wanted to use pattern paper, you would, before you seal this up, you would add your piece to this part right here, and I usually take it all the way to the edge here, and then I leave a little bit of space here and there. That way it looks like it continues around the back, even though it doesn't. So try not to leave a border on this edge. Go ahead and leave a border here and here, but not on this edge, and it'll look like it wraps to the back. You can also do the same thing to this one. Of course, you'd want to round the corner, just like the top here, and bring it all the way to the edge here. Also, if you would like to add your piece right here, for example, let's see if I have one of the pieces. Let's go ahead and use this as an example. So this is a 1-inch piece. Say, for example, this was going to go on here. Of course, I would round the 2 tops. I would cut this piece to size, and it might be easier for you to go ahead and add your piece here before these are closed up, which I think we might end up doing. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you. So let's just go ahead and get those folded up. Now this top one does not get folded down unless you want it to be a closure. But in this case, we want it to be a library pocket, so we want that to stay open. So don't worry about that score there. It was only to give you an edge to cut these others at the right angle. So again, let's go ahead and do this one. So we're going to fingers on the mountains, and we're going to fold in our sides. We're going to chomp the edges, and I want my left over my right, so I'm going to do that one, and then I'm going to fold that bottom skinny part up, just like that. And we're just going to leave these open because I think we are going to go ahead and try. I usually slide mine in there, but it'd be a lot easier to add the little pattern paper piece here before we close up the envelope. So we will save that for later. And that pretty much wraps up our pieces. So now we actually are going to break, and we will come back and we will start our decorating. So we will see you back here for video number 5.